myself. You call me Mav. My Twitch handle is a small armadillo. And Ren here, Ryleigh and Brooke, we're all going to discuss The Lord of the Flies. We're going to have a great discussion. We're going to start today with chapters 1 through 4. So get your hymnals out, and we'll be away. We'll be away. So this is the book that we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And we've been talking for like the last hour at least. 2 hours maybe, and just an hour. I guess just 1 hour.
About hour and a half, something like that.
We've been having to try and get through the rigmarole of this whole podcast type situation, and and we're finally through it, and hopefully we'll be broadcasting out to you. So. So, okay, Ryleigh, I want you to start off.
All right.
Because you have a lot of opinions, apparently, about this book.
Jumping right in.
Okay.
Yeah.
I've made notes, but I like this book a lot. It's really... Oh, okay. I don't like the story.
When did you first read it?
I read it my sophomore year in high school. I had to read it for my sophomore year English, and I don't like it.
See, I feel like that's when most people read the book.
Right.
But I didn't.
I was one of the few that did not.
I didn't read it either.
A lot of people that I've talked to about this have said that they had to read it in school.
Yeah.
That is where my opinions were formed, but like rereading it, it's like the characters like have no like remorse. They have no emotion like for each other. Like most of the boys don't.
Yeah.
And it makes me really sad, except for Piggy. And like I go through and I highlight every time that Piggy says something like level-headed.
It's like everything he says.
Yeah. He says, he's like, why are you guys doing this?
Yeah.
And they're like, shut up, you're fat, you don't know anything. Like,
they're like, fat equals dumb.
I feel like that's kind of part of the point of the book, though, is that they have no remorse. Like, that's the whole point of...
I feel like that's something I kind of have to come to terms with. Like, the older I get is how good something is versus how much I enjoyed it. Where it's like I watched Midsommar, and I really did not enjoy that experience at all, but I still think that movie is really, really great.
Right.
It's just like, man, I didn't enjoy it, but I also can't say like I hated it because of that. I just like, I don't know. It's an interesting thing to try to like balance out in your mind. How
that's
felt
my experience so far with the book. Lord of the Flies by William Golding is a wonderful book of content, but I do not think that its form is something that I enjoy, if that makes sense. Like I don't enjoy the form of the book, but I love what's in it, because it's like the message and the themes I think are legendary, like they're classical, but at the same time, like I get just in the 4 chapters, which like 4 chapters is not a lot. It's a very small book. Yeah. It's a really quick read. I got so sick in the first chapter of him describing what the damned island looks like.
Oh my God, the amount of descriptions about the heat.
It is so confusing.
I can't picture it in my mind, so I just like do my own thing.
I was trying so hard, and it's like,
where is the bathing pool?
Where's the lagoon? Is the lagoon the same thing as the beach? Like the way he's describing it, like they look a short distance away and there's the beach, and they spent the next hour walking over to, or something, like where I'm just like, I do not get spatial relationships.
Oh my God. And then how early did they leave for the mountain? Because they leave for the mountain, like they're walking. Yeah, but they get back by the afternoon. Because they're like, oh, the afternoon heat is kicking it. So how short is this island?
Yeah, I did not understand it at all.
I was like, where...
I know, like, at certain points, there are, like, pink stones, like, very square pink stones. All around the island, and the mountain is, like, a big piece of that, but...
Is it? Yeah, it's... I don't know what it is. It's like a hill.
Yeah, I just stopped caring about all that. Because
I know,
honestly,
I eventually just, like, read through all the descriptive stuff.
Yeah, it's not going to matter just a ton. Yeah. So yeah, I just got tired of it, and this is one of the first books that I've been able to read, and people always talk about speed reading. Yeah. Speed reading is not a thing, because like as soon as you start speed reading, you start losing retention.
Yeah.
Sure.
And comprehension especially, and so like the whole big problem with all the books that I read is that I love them. I do a lot of vetting with the books that I read, and I really try and make sure that what I'm reading is worth my time. Because I read relatively slow. Sure. I read at about like a voice's cadence. which is like 215 words per minute. And so if I read something, I want it to be good. This book, there's so much unnecessary description in it that I can read through it very quickly at like probably 400 to 500 words per minute.
Oh yeah.
And easily. Like I finished the first 4 chapters in probably a day. And so I had to actually go back and reread the summaries for like Spark Notes.
Eventually I just had I had to give up on like giving any attention to the details of the island.
I had to take a bunch of breaks through reading it because I was like, man, I remember why in school I hated reading this. Yeah. And that's why I didn't read it the first time.
And then they refer to the plane crash site as the scar. That's the scar in the landscape. So it's like, I'm trying to like visualize that. Like, what does it look like? I kept thinking,
is there any wreckage of this plane? Yes. Why are the kids not going to check out the wreckage? Did it crash in the ocean?
Man, why are they not living
Your
in
questions
the
will
fuselage
be
or something?
But what I saw, like when I really started highlighting and taking my time, was the decay of morality that really happens. There's like no one there to direct them and guide them. So like really, like right when they get there, they're looking around, and instead of realizing like, oh my God, we're on an island and there's like, we can't feed ourselves, there's no grown-ups, there's no one around, they're like, they basically like grin and they're all cheering and they say, no grown-ups. Like they're like so excited. There's no grown-ups here. And it's like, this isn't a kiddie fun park. Like, this is bad. Yeah.
Even like establishing the situation, it seems like Ralph, the kid the blonde boy who is almost immediately like elected chief by the other kids. Yeah. He's very dismissive of Piggy and like
he's so mean.
Every time he talks about Piggy speaking, he's like, "Oh, I'm bored."
Or even the situation, Piggy's like, "What? So did we crash? Like, what's going on?" Trying to establish it, and Ralph is just like trudging away from him.
He's like,
through the
stupid
creepers
fat kid
on the floor.
Yeah. He's really mean to him, and it's sad. I like how descriptive it is of the characters. So it's talking about Ralph, and it just said like he had eyes that proclaim no devil. And then you move on, and it talks about Jack's eyes, and how they were like evil. Like he started getting crazy whenever he's like having to kill the pig, which I don't like. Who decides like, yeah, let's do this chant about killing the pig? That's extremely dark.
Weird.
They're like, kill the pig, make her bleed. Like,
spill her blood, cut her throat.
It's so bad.
They get archaic like super quick.
Oh my God, yeah.
Super quick. Okay, so like to I think we're getting into some good stuff. To start off, let's have somebody like try and recap each of the chapters, like review like what happened in those chapters, so we're up to speed on this.
Okay.
And I'll try and start with the first, and then if I can't do it properly, someone can just pick up my slack.
Gotcha.
So first chapter.
It's really all in the titles too.
Yeah, pretty much.
The sound of the shell.
Yeah, so the sound of the shell. They immediately, this is what I remember, chapter 1, the boys wake up on an island, and they're separated as Piggy and Ralph. Yes. And Piggy and Ralph are just walking around all sweaty and stuff. Piggy wipes his glasses a ton.
I think Ralph is like
literally
Ralph
every
is like
second
12 years old.
Yeah.
He's kind of one of the older of the boys.
Yeah.
And Piggy is obviously a little fat kid.
Yeah, he's 12 or 13. They're about the same age.
Yeah.
And they are attempting to find the others. They end up finding the others with the utility of the conch shell.
Conch or conch?
Conch, which we'll talk about after the summarization.
Yeah. I was reading it in my mind as conch the whole time.
I was too, but some people disagree. They fervently disagree.
Oh wow.
So they try and find the people. They use the conch shell to make a loud horn noise to call everyone, all the other boys, including the littler ones, like all come to the central location.
Yeah.
And they gather together. So that's what I remember from the first chapter. Is there more in the first chapter that I'm leaving out?
They meet up, and like one of the big things is when kind of Jack walks in with his crew.
Oh,
So
yeah,
he's
that's
got
right.
like a crew of boys that are like
choir boys.
they're ride or die for him.
And they're all like wearing black cloaks and
Yeah,
stuff,
they
which
all
is
kind
just their
of
choir
march in.
boy uniforms.
Yeah.
And there's an authority struggle there for a second. Like, are they going? Ralph's elected chief, and Jack is over here like, well, I've already had all this authority with these other boys, and so it's kind of like this weird
crew.
like, who should really be in charge?
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a knife too. Jack has a knife.
He really likes whipping it out too and stabbing trees.
Stabbing
and it's like,
bark.
You guys think I won't kill something? I'll
Watch
do it.
this. Yeah.
He stabs something
They're
immediately.
really-
So then chapter 2 is, let's see. Yeah, it's important though, I guess, maybe to note that Piggy does have those glasses though, and he can't see it all without them. He's like Velma from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Every time he drops it, he's like, my glasses.
I saw a video on Twitter. I don't know if you've seen the same one, but it's like this like really, really hot Asian chick, and like she has like a really nice butt. And she's like, the title is like How Velma Be in Scooby-Doo, and it's like her big glasses on the floor, and she's like, oh my gosh, my glasses, and her butt is in the air, and it's like really seductive, and it's like, my glasses, I can't see. Anyway, that's Piggy, except he's not as seductive.
He's not as
woman.
hot or Asian, as far as we know.
Man, are you sure?
And they're all British boys because it's a British author.
Yeah, which I don't know how important
They do describe
that
Britain.
is to note,
It's
other than the
because
fact that it's the war.
They're getting evacuated because of the war.
Well, it's
there's like a third world war starting or something, which is weird because I didn't know that.
Really?
It says on the back, at the dawn of the next world war.
Well,
which I think was
World War
WW2.
Well,
That's when it was written.
Oh.
Was it?
Oh, I guess it was written in the
World War III.
50s.
In the 50s.
World War II had already ended at that point.
Yeah, but
is
this
like
if he's writing from his perspective, then that would like align.
Okay.
Like his timeline, you know?
Yeah.
I wasn't
I don't
sure if
know.
it was saying. I guess it doesn't matter ultimately if it's a new World War or if it's World War II.
Yeah.
Because
Let's.
It's
Yeah, he
kind
wrote
of-
it in 54. So yeah, and it was published in 54. So. Yeah, I don't know. I guess he would have had to have
it's
just
probably World War II. I don't know
just
why
said
I
it
just
there.
read it as like the next World War. Like, oh, there's another one going on.
That's what I assumed it was. It would have been interesting for him to set it up as a third World War.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I guess maybe it like that would have distracted maybe from what he was trying to say ultimately with the whole book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably why it's not a big thing in it. They've been abandoned and stuff, and this is the reason was because of the World War, but it's not like
that's
a
why there
central
aren't
thing.
adults there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's more
Is
like
it-
they loaded their kids up in a plane.
Oh,
so they
that's
could be
actually
safe.
really good to explain why there probably weren't adults on the plane.
There's no adults.
Because
I
I
think
was
that
like,
they were
man,
just
that was a
evacuating the-
selective
Except for
plane
the
crash.
pilot who dies, I think, in the crash.
Could have been a kid, you don't know.
I guess it could have been a kid.
No,
pilot.
no.
That's
They
why
talked
they
about the
crashed.
pilot because Piggy at the very beginning is like, "Where's the pilot?" And
Yeah.
he was listing like, "Where are the grown-ups?" He knew, and it was just, it's so
What
sad.
I-
He's on the beach and he's like, "What's your name? What's your name?" Trying to count
Yeah.
people,
And then
figuring
the kids
this
all
out.
scatter while he's trying to count them
Yeah.
up and get their names.
He's the only like semblance of an adult, and I think they like literally hate him for that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does it
Yeah.
ever establish like? I didn't understand how these kids ended up scattered if they were in the same plane. Are they all jumping out as the plane is like flying through the brush?
I think
crashing?
it crashed, and they might have gotten disoriented and like just went different ways in the jungle. Like
Maybe,
maybe some
like-
of them were unconscious.
I
Yeah.
never
came out.
understood
Well,
that.
sometimes with plane crashes, the plane will separate into different pieces. And so, like, I don't know, maybe some of them got knocked
There's
out
never
longer.
any description of debris from the plane, though.
That
it's,
is
it's
true.
just
But
like the
there's the
scar
scar.
through the forest
But
or the jungle.
I don't think that they have been deep enough into the jungle to find the wreckage.
Okay.
So
It is confusing that all the choir boys are already together. And Ralph, the book starts off
that's
with
true.
Ralph and Piggy getting out of the wreckage.
I don't think that they even
And
remember
he's
how
blowing
they
the
got to that
shell,
point.
and they're like coming out of different parts of the jungle around
Did
them.
they not see each other? Also, how big
I don't
is this
understand
island?
it. I don't
I don't think
understand
it's
it,
that
but
big. Like I think that they were probably just disoriented because it doesn't really say like.
Man, but
I
the
think they're
choir
just really
boys are
dazed.
like marching in all together. Like They know what's up.
That's true.
Anyway, they decide to like establish some rules, and they establish Ralph as
Yeah.
the leader.
Yeah, I
they
think
realize they need some sort of structure.
Yeah,
of,
that's
like,
a summarization. Get into chapter 2.
Chapter 2 is Fire on the Mountain.
Yeah, Fire on the Mountain. Chapter 2, basically summarization for chapter 2 is so chapter 1 is chaos and exploration. Chapter 1 is the beginning of the story, in which this is the call to adventure for Jack and Ralph.
Yeah.
And they're basically the only two people, potentially Piggy, that respond positively to this situation, because they're obviously the leaders that are like, you know what, we're gonna try and do something about this.
Yeah.
There's a lot of little kids there.
Yeah.
So
mostly little
there's
kids.
there's like the 6-year-olds playing around, and then there's Simon and like some of the older people. So they're
The Litlins.
the Litlins. Yeah, that's what they nicknamed them.
Yeah, they call them the Litlins.
So how old is Simon? Is he 12?
I think he's 12
around
because
that
he's
age,
part of Jack's choir boy group.
Yeah.
And then there's the twins, whose names
Sam and Eric.
Sam and Eric. That's
and
right.
then throughout the book, they start combining their names more and more, where it becomes one word.
They're just Sam and Eric, like all at once.
Sam and Eric.
Really?
With an N between their names.
Does that happen in chapter 4?
Yeah,
No,
it
that-
does. Because they
Does
just
it?
look up and they're like, Sam and Eric do this.
Yeah, because they were the same person, I guess.
That's how twins
And-
work.
Yeah, you're...
Apparently.
Yeah, there's 2 of them.
Weird.
So that's
chapter 2 there is all about them trying to set a fire on top of the mountain, which is like obviously the high point on the island, so that the smoke will be seen by somebody and they can potentially be rescued.
Yeah, but then they end up
Catching
setting a
everything
lot of the
on fire.
forest on fire, and at the end of the chapter they're like, where's this kid? Who knows?
Yeah.
Guess
Yeah,
we'll
there's a
move
kid
on.
with a birthmark on his face that's
It's-
like one of the
yeah.
younger 6 and under
He's
kids.
the kid that was afraid of the snake monster,
The
right?
Beastie.
Yeah,
the Beastie. He's
So-
the only one that supposedly saw it.
He tries to
I
warn him
believe
about
in
this
the
creature.
Beastie. It's just, you do see you already see power struggle between Jack and Ralph, like
Yeah.
constantly. So we're seeing that, and then we're seeing Piggy being like really real, because like Ralph is like, my dad is in the Navy, he knows, he's gonna come get me, and Piggy's saying, he's like, nobody knows where we are.
Yeah,
Nobody knows.
Yeah.
And they're really trying to like be honest, and the little kids are getting scared. The children are getting scared, and it said like basically like everybody was scared. It said the silence was so complete that they could hear the unevenness of Piggy's breathing, like that it was just like they really realized like, okay, like, oh, this whole no grown-ups BS is out the window, like we're on our own, and they're freaking out. And that's when they start doing like, oh, we need hunters, like we need this. So, it just really gets dark and little and scary.
So while we're going through these chapters, we're summarizing all of them right now. We'll go ahead and take a look at some of the characters, the key 3 characters that lead up the story.
Yeah.
And we'll take a look first at Ralph. And
If we
we'll
look
see.
at pictures, it's just gonna ruin how I thought I saw him.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
this
me
is
too.
we're gonna pull up different. I'm gonna have different depictions every time we join.
Okay, cool.
We'll have different artists that have done different renditions of their interpretation of what they are for. So today we started with the most popular, which is the film version that they made in the 80s.
And he doesn't even have light hair.
I was going to say, I definitely
That's no
imagine more
Ralph
of a
of
toe-headed
mine.
kid.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So this is Ralph here.
But about the right build and age range, I would say, for Ralph.
Yeah, they talked about his shoulders and like.
Yeah, he's a lot cleaner than I imagined him. But
They basically were saying like towards the end of the chapters that their shorts were like
they
falling
all
off.
have
They were,
like sunburns peeling off of their
them.
backs.
And
Yeah.
they're like at one point Ralph just gets super like mad about the fire, and he just like lets his pants fall off while he's like running off the hill.
Pretty
'cause he's
much,
like,
yeah.
He's like, there's
That's
our
right.
ship. So
Doesn't he?
I had to
He
reread that.
needs
I was
to
like,
run.
did his
I
pants
thought
just fall
he
off?
like fully ran up the mountain completely naked, but were his pants like around his ankles or something?
I think no, they fell off because they're like all decayed and stuff.
And
As
he's
much
like,
as these kids are getting whipped by those plants and stuff, I don't know if I would go without.
yeah,
that was one
Some
of the
sort of protection.
grosser
Oh, yeah.
parts of the book. I was like, oh my gosh, because I think it was Ralph or Jack that like sprinted through the forest to try and light that fire up. It was Ralph.
It was Ralph.
It was Ralph.
Yeah.
He was like, oh
His
golly,
legs are all bloodied
I fell back on my job,
Yeah.
and he sprinted through the forest, and it said that the critters or whatever were like cut.
The critters.
Yeah, the creepers.
The creepers were
Which
cutting
are just
him
like
over.
little plants
And
on the
his
ground.
blood was making
like
it like
bushes.
his sweat was making like the leaves stick to him, and he
Yeah.
was bleeding everywhere.
And he had at one point he just passively had it all over his hand to where he couldn't even use his hand, and so he had to wipe it on his shorts.
What's great though is that these are little
Super
kids, and you can remember like being a little kid. Like you would bounce back from something like this fairly easily as a kid. Like not a big deal. Go sit in the bathing water for a little bit, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something that like the older you get, you realize like, man, I would
If these
think
kids
I'd be
get
out of commission
rescued,
for a
they're
little
really
bit.
Except whenever like Jack
They're
kills that
messed up.
pig and he has like the blood all over his hands and he like is gonna go and rub it through his hair and he's
Oh,
like
man.
ah, and then he like rubs it on his pants and he goes ha 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 and he like
He's
laughs.
just laughing about it.
Yeah.
He's such a
Rubbing the
psycho.
blood.
I can't deal with that guy.
Do you have other pictures of other kids?
Yeah, so we'll go to
That's
the next
Ralph.
one. So this is Ralph.
Got it.
He's probably, if I had to guess, and just so you know, like Ren and I have never read this book, so we don't know.
Never
but my
read it.
prediction for Ralph is that he is obviously being set up as the protagonist.
Protagonist?
Yeah, he looks like he's gonna be the good guy.
Okay,
He's
see,
still
I-
a little bit of a mean guy.
Is he?
He's not a nice
I mean,
guy.
I think he's not nice to Piggy. I mean, like, he does assign Piggy stuff to like quell his like anxiety
Yeah.
and stuff
Yeah.
because Piggy's kind of like freaking out, and he's like, "Hey, you can take names. That's a good job for you," because he didn't want Piggy going up the mountain with his asthma.
Yeah, his asthma. Yeah. Asthma.
What does he
So-
say? Suck.
Asthma. Well,
What-
see,
what
we
does he
say
tell him?
asthma, but they wouldn't say the R's though, would they?
They say asthma.
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 But why
Asthma.
does he say
But I think-
asthma?
Well,
I think he
it's like
does have
Michael
the R
Caine.
on it.
How like they say words like
Asthma.
soda or sofer.
Wait,
in
so
it
is
with an
everyone
R?
else Cockney and like Piggy has
No,
like
Piggy
a
had.
nice
They
accent?
said towards the end, they said that Piggy stood out because he was fat,
and he
Let me
has a
turn to it.
different accent.
They said
I know
that he was fat and he had a different accent and he knew everything.
Wait, so
See,
what
I think that's the
accent does
thing. He
have?
has a dumb accent.
Oh,
I think
that's
is
what it
his
was.
issue.
Yeah,
He has like a Cockney accent. He has like a low class
So
accent.
he's the one
And-
with the Cockney accent.
Yeah.
What is he?
Yeah,
he
they were
says,
really outcasting
sucks to
him.
your asthma.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna
bef-
start
him.
saying that.
Before
to
we
people
started
that-
recording, when y'all started talking about Asperger's, I was gonna say sucks to your Asperger's.
They really do outcast Piggy from the beginning. I mean, even in like later on in the chapters, it says like Piggy was an outsider not only by accent, which did not matter, but by fat and asthma and sweat and specs and a certain disinclination for manual labor. So like they were
Yeah.
like,
If you're not willing
They're
to
like
help out
this
with
guy.
the labor, you're already like getting on people's nerves a little bit.
I mean, but Jack didn't even help with like, and that was in the 3rd chapter where Ralph was like, "Oh, you were just trying to hunt a pig, but you couldn't even do that, so you weren't even helping at all." And Jack's like, "No, I was trying to hunt that pig. I almost did it." And he's like, "But did you?"
I
He's
kind
like,
of I already
"No."
get the feeling though that what's his name, Ralph is gonna be more antagonistic than he is
"Oh, really?
protagonistic.
You think?
Really?
We'll see."
He just
Yeah,
seems
we'll see.
he seems like he's got a little bit of sympathy for Piggy, but that might dissolve
So
under
what
their
I think that he-
circumstances.
I think when it got to the point, well, we're trying to break down the chapters. I mean, it's like I don't want to get to like the very tail end of the chapter and be like, you know what, this guy.
Yeah,
but
well, I
Piggy
don't
is
know. That's-
definitely he's not gonna fare well in this story at all because he's a voice of reason, and this doesn't
Yeah.
seem like a story
Yeah.
built around a voice
Yeah.
of reason.
I
Yeah,
agree.
Riley, bring your microphone in closer to you.
Oh,
It's
sorry,
okay.
sorry.
More.
More.
Are we
That's
still
good.
going through
Okay.
the chapters other than there's
Yeah,
chapter
so we're still going through the
3?
chapters, but we're also doing the characters
Yeah, that's
inside the
okay.
chapters. So yeah, I think for whatever reason, I got the impression that Ralph was going to be the protagonist, but I guess that was wrong. I may have
No,
misinterpreted
I
that.
agree.
I have no idea.
I agree.
So then we're going to move on from Ralph. We're going to move on to Jack now.
better.
So this is Jack.
See, that's
Man,
more
that
like
looks
what
like
I
a
imagined.
That's
for
what I
Ralph.
imagine.
Yeah.
Jack's
Man,
a
he's a
redhead.
Jack is
Ginger.
redheaded, yes.
And
That's
he's
why
got
he has no
freckles all
soul
over.
in this.
But Jack, honestly, this guy belongs in prison. He's a psycho. He's crazy.
It's
That's why
weird
they
that-
made him a ginger.
The way
to make him
Jack-
unlikable.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Jack being redheaded automatically like makes you not like him a little bit. I don't know, like just describes him as this kid with freckles and
Sorry,
stuff.
redheaded people.
I know it sounds like
Sorry
so
out there.
terrible towards redheaded people, which I don't mean it that way. It's just like I feel like that's a way to establish this character as not likable or automatically someone who's going
Has
to be a
that
little
always
bit.
been a thing in like pop culture about like gingers not having a soul or
Yeah.
being evil?
Honestly, I think it has more to do with like pop culture and the way it depicts
Well,
redheaded
has
people
that
than
always
like
been
my
a thing,
own
though? I
I just
personal
kind of
viewpoint.
envision him as unattractive.
I
like,
think
not cute.
actually it's just residual racism that America has toward the Irish, because
Poor
when
Irish.
they
Oh,
when
yeah,
they first
that's
came
true.
over to New York, like
So
in-
I'm safe because I'm
Yeah, like
Right, you're
Catholics.
good,
and
you're
stuff.
good.
They
Because
hated
we're
them.
good.
when the Irish first came over to New York, they were definitely discriminated against, like
Yeah.
hugely.
Yeah.
To the point where like they had no opportunity to work other than, and that's what the racism toward the Irishmen is what resulted in such large organized crime within Irish culture in America. And so like that's kind of why I feel like maybe
he's
an
English.
Irish type
Well,
person
maybe that's
would be
also
He's
why
English.
chosen as an antagonist in a story, and that's
'Cause-
why I thought he was.
yeah.
I think
like-
he's a little dark. I mean, he
Also,
just
he's got
is
a
depicted.
knife.
But
And he's
also,
struggling with like killing a thing,
Yeah.
and then he gets over that in a weird way.
In a really quick way.
yeah.
Oh, well, I understand it. Like he needs to prove himself to these other
He's-
kids.
Is he the
Yeah.
one? Is Jack the one that says? He's like, oh, I had an issue with, he didn't kill the pig, and then he's like, I'll never hesitate to kill again.
Yeah.
And he just keeps
Yeah.
stabbing the bark with his
Yeah,
knife.
he does.
He's like,
And then
Whipping
and
her-
it says he's
and-
looking around at anyone who doubts him.
And
And
this
he's
is
just
when
like,
I think that Jack like degrades like from humanity very quick. So he goes from, and it says like that he's become less of a hunter and more of a furtive thing, like ape-like among the trees. So he's on the ground. He's smelling the ground,
Right.
He's looking for like crap on the floor, and he's just really getting dark. Like he's getting to the point like, next time I'm gonna be able to stick a pig.
Yeah.
Next time I'm going to be able to kill something. And that's like a big like change for him when he's able to take the life of something else. I think that was like such a character shift for him.
yeah.
yeah, it's like him not being elected leader, and then him not being able to kill that pig whenever he has a chance. And he comes across like a
Yeah.
little piglet that's
I-
caught in the
and
plants.
it-
and
I think the
it
real
went
like,
by his
hesitates and
ego.
it gets away.
Yeah.
the real switch I feel like though is whenever he puts on the face paint and
Oh, he
stuff.
changes.
I feel like it's like symbolic in the book. Whenever he puts on that face paint, he's basically becoming a new person.
Yeah, he's
And-
like trying to mimic
Yeah, so-
military
yeah.
camo.
So
Yeah.
regular him is like his morality and stuff. For like whenever he first tries to kill the pig, he holds up his knife for a long time and he can't do it because killing something is much different. Whenever you think about it, it's like, oh, maybe I could do that in like a survival setting, but actually bringing yourself to do that is entirely different.
And then
But whenever he puts on the face paint, he's basically taking away his morality because he becomes much more violent whenever he pushes Piggy. And he punches him, doesn't he?
yeah, he punches him in the
right in the
stomach.
gut.
Well, that's like an
And-
interesting thing too, because it's like all of these children are returning back to their archaic practices that their ancestors had naturally,
Yeah.
like almost as if it was a biological installment, right?
I think it's
And-
because nobody's watching them to tell them, no, don't do that.
Right, so they can
Yeah.
return back to their roots, their biological roots. They can access portions of their DNA that have never been accessed before.
Are we biologically like cruel though? Like
I
you
feel
know
like
the part
that's-
where the little boy, I think it was Roger, and he's hiding behind the tree and he's throwing rocks at another
Yeah.
boy that was like building this
Yeah,
sandcastle.
Percival
And
or
he
something,
said-
whatever his name was.
I think
And
it was
he went
Henry
over and
he
he
was
kicked
throwing
sand
the-
in this
Oh,
other
what's the
boy's
other
eye,
kid's name?
and he
The
said,
guy
He
baby.
kicked the sand in
Yeah.
Percival's face, but he threw the
Percival.
rocks at Henry.
and they kind of refer to it like they said in his old life he wouldn't have done this, but here there's no one watching.
Yeah.
So there's no one like sitting there and being like, hey, don't kick sand. But like, shouldn't they know better? Like when you're a certain age, like you know better than to do things. But I don't know. I
think that's the whole purpose of the book probably is to
just
like have you meditate on this, like how quickly society and rules and behavior degrades back to, I don't know, this something I read or saw was like these like behaviors and rules and everything that took thousands of years to develop can go away so quickly when suddenly like desperate times, you're on an island.
I feel like it's going into like human nature and stuff, and I know in psychology I think it's humanistic theory. Is that right, Maverick? Humanistic is where humans are inherently bad, right?
That may be it, but I think that it's definitely even
that's nature.
Like a ton of whether it's humanistic or not, I think is less relevant in this case, because they're put into such a primitive situation. And so I think it's more of a Darwinist view that you should take with these children.
Survival of the fittest.
Because that's why Piggy is so put down by everyone. Is because his fitness in the environment is
that's a good point.
The lowest rung.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
And everyone else's fitness is at least better than Piggy's.
Like I think
at least better than Piggy's.
Better than Piggy.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think at that point, whenever they were all passing around the pig meat at like the very end, and they had to like begrudgingly give Piggy his food.
Well,
and
they didn't even.
They wanted to
humiliate
Piggy. Him. Yeah, they wanted to make him feel bad.
Simon gave Piggy his food because they didn't give Piggy any of the pig.
Simon didn't want it at first either, right?
Well, no, he wouldn't eat it, and then Jack like threw it in front of him and was like, "Eat! I killed the pig." And so I think everybody around there, that was a thing for Jack. Basically, everybody's like, Jack killed the pig. Jack is doing all this good things for us. But feeding Piggy is like kind of like people are looking around like thinking like, I'm hungry every day and we're feeding him.
We're feeding him the fat kid.
And he's fat. And it's like you would watch him and be like, is he eating more than me right now?
I think it's like a residual, like it's a residue of their society, of like their humanity left over. It's not just like them being cruel.
From
like,
the get-go,
that's
they were
their
cruel.
Humanity. They gave Piggy food.
Yeah,
right?
They didn't give him food.
They
skipped him, and they were
like,
you didn't hunt. And he was like, yeah, Ralph didn't, and Simon didn't. But then Simon gave Piggy his food because he was like, man, why aren't they giving this kid food?
Yeah.
And then
so it's Simon's residual humanity.
Yeah, and then they throw the food at Simon. They're like, I killed the pig. You have to eat.
Right.
And he's like, whatever, dude.
So like when I read that scene, I was like, they're already turning into animals.
Yeah.
Like this is animal pack like mentality, is which we work to kill this food, and the weakest members of the animal pack don't get to eat if they're not like aggressive enough to get the food.
Describing how they killed the pig and that they paralyzed it, and they're just like talking about it so excitedly. Like, we paralyzed its back legs, and then it ran back into our circle, and we all just beat it to death.
Yeah, they're all talking about like who did what. Oh, I jumped on it. I slit its throat. Didn't Jack slit its throat? And he's so excited about it.
That. I
think
that
definitely.
They enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Like, well, one, I think it would, like, honestly, I think it would feel good after being so hungry to finally, like, they're exerting so much energy to do that.
Yeah.
To like take time to do it, and I understand like the zeal behind it, but he's degrading as a person. He's becoming less of a person and more of like a killer.
Well, I think
that's a big part of it too, is the author writing it in a way where you can totally relate to that. You could totally see like, yeah, if I was like starving and I finally killed a pig, I would be so like ecstatic about it that I'd have something to eat. But also it's like the brutality and everything that comes through in that situation is you're forced to like reflect on that a little bit.
I think one of the important things to remember when we're going about talking about this, about the children, is that they are children.
Yeah.
And that's one of the most important parts of this book, is that William Golding could have caused a plane to crash that had tons of adults on it.
Yeah.
But he didn't. Right. He had a Boy Scout troop and some choir boys crash onto an uninhabited island, and that's important, and that these children, we're saying that, well, they're beginning to degrade. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think that there was much to degrade in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like children don't always understand fully the gravity of their decisions and stuff like that. And I know whenever, like, kids are 12, especially boys, like, making fun of each other and stuff like that is more, like, they do it a lot, and girls do it too.
If we really look at this from, like, a brain perspective, like, children don't have frontal lobe development, and so
prefrontal cortex,
they can't make, they don't see outcome when they make decisions. Like, they have a really hard time, like, understanding the gravity of their decisions. So all these kids are out here making brash decisions, just like the fire that we saw. They were like, oh my gosh, we have to make a fire right away. And so they didn't think, like, to make sure everybody was safe.
Or
everybody
establish
was
shelter, get everybody's
name. That was the first thing they did. They exerted all this energy just to build this fire, like, really rapidly, and then they ended up killing someone as a result of that because they couldn't see that. And Piggy's the only one that was like, you can't just go and do things.
He's definitely the most mature out of all of them. But it is interesting, like, putting yourself in that perspective. And it's easy to say why aren't they building shelter first? Why aren't they finding, like, clean water first? What's wrong with
even with Piggy, there are times where he's going off about, well, I was the one holding the conch shell. Like, they come up with this rule that whoever's holding the shell gets to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, they have the authority. And he just will not shut up about it. And as a reader, you're like, dude, shut up. You are making yourself the weakest link in this group so easily. Like, you're working hard to make yourself expendable.
Oh, yeah. I just feel so bad for him. But
I know. I was like, I get what you're saying, but shut up, kid.
I love to think of the book in, like, regards to, like, Maslow's hierarchy of greater needs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, like, I mean, once your basic needs are met, like, then you can start doing things like being compassionate and engaging in relationships and stuff and enjoying things. But like, these people, I mean, their basic needs aren't being met, so they're further able to they don't have room. And that's so hard, because part of me is like, if it wasn't little boys, if there were little girls on that island and there were some older girls, those girls would be like, I babysat a little bit. Like, they'd be rounding up the little kids and stuff. And I think, like, it would have been a completely different dynamic. Like, there would have been drama, there would have been craziness, but, like, it would have been a completely different dynamic. Like, because they're just so mean. And I mean, not to say that girls aren't mean, but, like, they're not mean to your face. Oh, like, they're not mean, like, they're going to be like, you fatty. Like, they're not going to look at you and say that. No. So I think that it would be a completely different, like, power dynamic if we had different gender roles in this story.
I love that that's, like, Piggy's so angry with Ralph that he told everyone that, like, he doesn't want anybody to call him Piggy.
He does it right away.
He mentions, like, well, at least nobody here is going to call me Piggy. And Ralph immediately is like, Piggy. And then he tells everybody else. And Piggy's like, I feel so bad, like, even referring to the character. Right. But it's like the little fat kid is like, dude, you said you weren't going to, like, I told you that in confidence. And he's like, well, at least they're not calling you fatty. See ya. And then he's just off with Jack to go kill stuff or whatever.
I don't know. I think that's one of the, like, the differences between the characters here, because we're always like, well, Piggy's the highest moral character in the story, right? But I don't think that's necessarily true, though, because I think that the reason that we think Piggy's so good is not because he doesn't hurt anyone and he doesn't offend or harm anyone. It's because he doesn't have the capability to do so. Yeah. He doesn't have the ability to hurt anyone.
He's vulnerable.
He can't hurt anyone verbally or physically or anything else. So it's not that he wouldn't, because we don't know what Piggy would do.
And he even kind of recognizes that he doesn't have the right resources. Like, when he tells Ralph, like, as soon as y'all left, all of the little kids under 6 started wandering off into the jungle.
He's like, I couldn't get him.
Like, I can't wrangle them all up because I've got asthma and I'm out of shape. Like, what am I gonna do?
Right?
Like, why did you let me do that?
Right? He doesn't have the resources to do anything.
All of his, like, kind of basic ideas are shot down. He's like, let's make a sundial, and they're like, that is the stupidest idea.
He's like, oh,
that
should
I've
we
ever
make a
heard.
TV stand too? Like, so
Yeah.
rude. What else?
Like,
He
and
said-
Piggy kind of
said a
brushes it off.
TV
He's
stand
like, or
and
an
like an
airplane. We don't
airplane.
have metal for a TV stand, but we do have sticks. We could totally
Yeah,
make a
Piggy
sundial.
takes it literally. He's like, we don't have metal to make those other things.
He's like, an airplane? No, silly. We can't make that.
Poor guy.
I think maybe that's evidence for Piggy's nature being very genuine. So maybe he is a good
I think
person.
he is good.
He actually is a good person, because that's like a genuine
Maybe-
person
Yeah.
to like really look at someone and say, no, you know what, man? No, we can't do that, but we do have this over here. And like he
should
was
do
clearly
that.
making
Yeah.
fun of him.
I
You
think
know?
it's important
Yeah.
to realize like what Piggy represents in the story, and
Yeah.
that's innocence. And what Jack represents in the story is loss of innocence,
Yeah.
loss of that. And Ralph is just he's a jerk. Like, I mean, he's fine, he's okay, but he's mean, and
Yeah.
I think that he kind of has to be that way, but he's not. He kind of was just thrust in this leadership
He's
role.
like, yeah, he's almost like appealing to the age range that he's dealing with as a leader, rather than being like a good leader who's gonna
Ralph
clearly
is almost
establish some hard rules.
Piggy's the good, Ralph is the neutral, and Jack is the
is-
bad.
Well, it's
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to differentiate between like Ralph just pandering to his audience, and like him just governing as he would, because he's the same.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he's relatively the same age.
Yeah.
He's not far off from the Litlands, and so
Litlands.
the Litlands.
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 Yeah. I love that they call all the like 6 and under kids that. They're just
Yeah.
They're
they're
like,
Litlands.
I don't want to learn their name. I'll just call them
So
that.
we've been talking a lot about Piggy. This is what Piggy looks like.
Oh, let's see
Let
it.
me see
Better
him.
get him good.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, he looks sweet.
What is he
Sweet little
wearing?
boy.
he is wearing,
I guess like a Boy Scout uniform.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what that is.
Poor guy.
Some
Yeah.
kind of British Boy Scout.
I watched
Uniform?
the movie Jojo Rabbit the other night,
Uh-huh.
and the main kid in that movie has a best friend. I can't remember what his best friend's name is, but the little boy that plays him, as soon as I saw him, I was like, okay, this is what Piggy looks like.
Nice.
He's just like a little fat kid with big old glasses, and
Oh,
he's
really?
so funny, and he's just like he's like a voice of reason and a friendly little character.
He's a
in
piggy.
this. He's a piggy.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was before I saw that movie though. I was thinking of like, have you ever seen Stand by Me?
Yeah.
Yes, of
With
course.
Yeah.
Little
The
fat Jerry
Stephen King
O'Connell.
story?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fat kid in that who's just like sincerely, like all the time, just complaining about stuff, but also
Yeah.
trying to be a voice of reason. That was what I had pictured in my mind. And he's got like the buzz cut.
I
and
think
everything.
almost any Stephen King story that you read or watch is gonna have a piggy.
There's
in
gonna
it.
be a
Yeah,
little
there's
piggy
gonna
in
be a
it.
There's
little
gonna
fat
be a
boy.
piggy in it.
And it makes me wonder if he was the little fat boy.
Right. Right.
But oh my gosh, I don't know. I really like Piggy. Sometimes I feel like I like identify with him just because I'm like I'm always that person, like my mouth overloads my butt, like I'm always talking and just like getting so frustrated. I remember like my freshman year I had to give like a presentation over a really controversial topic, and it was right during election year. And so I was like super emotional, and so I literally was like crying because people were like berating me and I couldn't get my voice out. And that's how I feel like Piggy is, like when he's taking the conch and he's like, listen to me, like this is what I have to say. And I think everybody has felt like Piggy at some point, like, you know, just everybody's felt put down and crappy.
I kind of feel like Piggy right now, drinking all this beer.
Oh yeah. I feel like his Asmar would have went away on the island.
Sucks to your Asmar.
I mean,
man,
I
that
think
doesn't
it,
go.
yeah.
So like his glasses are huge, man.
I was on Reddit
I
today.
kind of thought Harry Potter little specs, like smaller.
No, they're freaking
Like
huge.
in my head, but
well,
they're
they
big
had
in
to have been. If you think about it, what they're doing with his specs, like they're lighting
yeah.
fires with them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
They
and
had to have had such
Jack
a
broke
like.
one of the lenses in this
Yeah.
last one. I was
I
like, you
was so
moron!
upset
idiot.
by that because I was like, this early,
Dude.
you broke one of his specs. Like,
I'd be like,
you
you're
can't
trash.
do that.
Only
Garbage.
way
It's like
to
not
set
only
fire.
like that's his way of seeing, but also that's y'all's way of starting fires, you idiot.
Yeah, so you
He
just
doesn't care
broke-
about the fire. Jack does not care about being rescued. He
No.
could stay there with his
That's true.
grown-ups
That's
killing
true.
pigs for the rest of his life and be happy when Ralph is like, we need to get rescued. That's
Yeah.
why at the very end where he's like, you let the fire go out. You let the fire go out. And he hated him. And it was like, everybody was expecting Ralph to apologize, like towards the end after Jack was like, oh, okay,
But see, Jack
I'm
was
sorry.
upset about him letting the fire go out.
Yeah.
He was mad at his mistake.
He was
more
mad at
so
his mistake.
because
He
made a
understood it
mistake.
because everybody around him was like, "Oh, the fire went out," and they understood what that
Yeah.
meant. And then Jack was like, "You're right. I apologize."
But I think
But,
it's definitely
like,
evident
That guy
he-
doesn't care.
Yeah, because even whenever they first mentioned getting rescued, he's like, okay, well, I don't really care if we get rescued as long as I kill a pig first.
Yeah.
And so he like,
Well, who hasn't thought that at some point in their
dude,
life?
I always think that.
It's just upsetting. Like he doesn't care, and you could like really feel how gutted Ralph was, and he was like, "You let the fire go out." And I'm
Yeah.
like,
He was so
"Yeah,
mad.
I feel that. I feel for you, bud." Like,
And they do actually see a boat on the horizon at some point, don't they? Or is
yeah,
Yeah,
they
that's
saw
when
that.
they
That's
let the
why they
fire
went
go
to go
out.
light the fire.
it? Yeah. I thought
And
that's what like triggered
he
that
said-
whole situation.
Yeah.
But I wasn't sure if it turned out to be another
Oh,
mirage.
this was
or
a really
not.
good
Yeah,
part.
I mean-
they do see
Man,
mirages
and
a lot.
they act
Yeah.
like mirages aren't a thing. They're like they put it in quotations. These
Ooh.
things called mirages that Piggy talks about.
Well, yeah.
Like, do they not know what a
I don't-
mirage is?
I don't think they
guess
know.
not.
I mean, how many mirages would you see in England?
Enough of your
That's
fat
true.
kid sorcery, Piggy.
I mean, I don't think there's very many mirages you would see in England.
No.
So
not.
I guess
probably
not.
none.
Piggy's just
So-
smart.
It doesn't get hot. It doesn't get hot enough. Now I don't know the
That's
science
why they're
behind
saying
mirages.
wizard whenever they're climbing up
That's
the mountain.
yeah, wizard.
They're like, man, that fat boy's
Those
a
are
wizard.
so awkward. Those points in the book where they're all excited. Wizard, wahoo, zingow,
Wacko!
wacko,
that's
waco.
That is like a representation of their immaturity. So it's like they're
Yeah.
they're like faced with like this like they're faced with real time big boy like stuff, and they're like, oh, we're just gonna play around.
It's almost
And so,
comical whenever
yeah.
they like even kill the pig, and they're like, "We killed a pig!" Boom, zoing.
Yeah, like they were so,
So-
proud of themselves.
So I think we're good on talking about
Zoing.
most of the characters here. Now we'll go ahead and like finish for chapter 2 because you were talking about the fact that they're just like denying a lot of like the maturity
Yeah.
that they should be living up to, but they're not. That's kind of what I saw chapter 2 as being, which is a lot of denial through ignorance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can agree. With that.
Because
I agree.
it's like the whole deal through chapter 2 is the fact that Mother Nature is coming. Who's gonna be prepared,
Yeah.
right? And they attempt to do this, and they're like, "Well, Ralph says we should start a fire,
Yeah.
right? And we should try and signal for help."
Yeah.
Which, I mean, if you're intending to roll the dice, we're gambling here. Sure, we'll have a fire just in the happenstance that a plane or a boat goes by. They'll see it and they'll change their course, which honestly, I mean, is probably not even likely. Even if they saw the smoke, I don't think that like a frigate or something like that would change their course.
I mean,
you know.
fires do happen organically, but I don't think that they happen all the time organically on just an island.
But do you think that like some kind of freight would change its course?
Well, I think that they would know.
They would tell someone.
Okay,
They would radio
I feel like
in.
everybody knows that a literal plane of children crashed out of the sky. Can you imagine how
Right.
freaked out people would be?
Yeah, that's.
They would be
I
like,
guess that's the
everybody
thing.
needs to be looking for them.
You're kind of left unclear on exactly how many people know about their
I mean-
situation. It seems like only a few people even know
yeah.
the way they tell about it. Like Ralph's dad and
Well,
the pilot.
his dad
or
was in the Navy.
The man with the trumpet is who they keep mentioning.
Well, and it
Yeah.
might just be chaos back home because
Yeah.
Yeah,
a new war
you don't know
is
what they were
says.
evacuating.
is ensuing,
exactly.
right?
Yeah, they were saying like, they were like, oh, the our home got nuked. Like, basically, they were like,
yeah,
I think
Piggy
that they got
right
bombed.
at the beginning is like, nope, your dad is dead.
He was
Sorry.
like, your dad's probably dead because they had to
Yeah.
evacuate us. They're bombing us. So
Yeah.
it's just chapter 2 was like it started with like kind of everybody being like, ooh, like we're meeting up and everything's good and like let's regroup, but they just didn't understand the gravity of the situation, and it ended with the island on fire.
Yeah.
And that's like how much it like, and I think they kind of sobered up after they were like, oh, where's that birthmark kid? And they're like, I don't know where he is, but he's gone. He burned alive.
Which I think is one of the biggest.
Do they ever say that, like, explicitly?
They haven't said it yet.
But I'm pretty sure that's what happened to him.
They haven't said it yet. But
'Cause
the
he
only
didn't-
person that's worried about the splotchy faced kid.
It's Piggy.
Splotch kid.
Once again.
Right, he's a splotchy.
Piggy's like,
Surprised they didn't establish
it's
that
the,
as
it's
his
the kid that has a
nickname.
splotched,
His name's
like the
Splotch.
red pomegranate splotched face.
yeah, like
Which-
I think it's just a port stain wine. That's what they call
Yeah.
it. Or a port wine stain.
Yeah, that noticed the Beastie, and he burned alive in the fire. I'm
Yeah.
assuming, and the only person that is aware or worried about his whereabouts is Piggy.
I just figured he got devoured by a beastie, or he wandered
He
off.
I
and-
think
saw
that's
it
what
and it
happened
came
is
back
that-
for him.
In any case, the little lad is dead.
Yeah.
And no
He's
one.
dead.
At the very
Because
least, he's just gone.
If we look at chapter 3, time has passed. Their
Yeah.
hair is growing.
Right? Yeah.
There-
How
It's
much
true.
time
They
has
still haven't
I
heard
think
about
it-
him. Or heard from
long
him.
enough.
Yeah.
I don't know, boys. How long does it take for your hair to fall in your eyes?
It takes a long time.
That's
A
gonna
long
be
time,
like
yeah.
a few months.
And
like
honestly-
It
3
takes
months.
a few
That-
months to build 2 shelters. God.
These guys are
Fellas.
idiots.
I think it would take a while. They're pretty young. Now they're like 13 or 14 now. So that's like they're making some progression in age.
They've been here. I don't think they've been here a year.
Not a whole year?
Surely not.
No.
I
Maybe
think
think
at
a
least
year.
a
Maybe
month.
someone's birthday is taking place.
A month?
Someone,
Well, they probably wouldn't know.
I don't
when
someone
they
think
has
were-
had a birthday.
Someone.
Yeah, because they didn't build Piggy's sundial.
Here, Piggy, we made you a cake.
It's just
I
like-
guess.
The author kind of progresses into the time shift, but like we're not gonna know because they don't know how much time has
I feel like
passed
this
either.
author's weakness is establishing things.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know, like maybe it's not supposed to matter for the overall story. It just doesn't matter. But like the layout of this island and how much time is passing is, and what happened to the plane, all this
It
stuff
makes
is just
sense.
like so clearly,
It makes sense
so poorly established.
if it was looking from the perspective of like the children.
Mm.
Like the children don't know what happened.
Yeah, this is
They
third
don't
person.
really have a grasp of what the island is or like everything or how much time is passing. Like they don't know. So like that ties it in with the confusion and the blur that everything is like going on.
I will
Yeah.
say
For
something else that William Golding does that kind of bugs me, and this is a lot of authors do this, is whenever different people are speaking, he doesn't say like says this person.
Oh my god.
It's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like in
Annoying.
quotes one person talking, in quotes the
Yes,
next person
yeah,
for
I
several
agree.
lines,
Yes.
and then it's where you have to go back and start at the beginning and,
And
see
really
who
check
was
to see
talking
who was
first,
talking.
Yeah,
Right.
to like
and
Okay.
skip over it to
Yeah.
see like whose
Yes.
line it is now.
I've
I
noticed that.
hate having to do that.
Which is a thing that multiple authors do. It's not just William Golding. And,
Yeah, definitely.
And,
Well,
and
it's
you could
annoying.
definitely consider William Golding as a very successful author.
Sure.
One
yeah.
of my favorite authors, George R.R. Martin, he does a similar thing.
Yes.
He's got too many characters to do
but the
that.
main difference between William Golding and George R.R. Martin in their inability to just like do quotes, because they do long stretches of dialogue, and when you do long stretches of dialogue, I feel like you are incapable of doing anything other than putting the quotes there as they happen.
Yeah.
But he's very good at establishing who is speaking to one another, no more than 2 people at a time usually. And if they say something, it's something that character would
would
have
say.
said.
Yeah.
So you are
Okay.
very
Gotcha.
easily able to identify who is saying what.
Yeah.
It's
there
never
are times in this book where it's like I
Right.
don't know.
Well,
who's
because it's so
taking this
difficult
stance.
because he does it so early in the book before you understand how the characters,
the characters
speak.
are.
yeah, the
who
characters
they
aren't even
are.
established
Yeah,
yet.
Yeah.
and it'll be like in a huge group of people where they're just throwing quotes one after another, and you're like, who is even talking
Are
to each
Is
other?
this
Ooh,
Jack
guys.
or the twins? I don't know.
Is this
Yeah.
Sam
Okay.
and Eric?
Sam and Eric speaking simultaneously.
Yeah, they only speak like the twins of The
Sam
Shining.
and
I feel like this is a point that's like almost seems unimportant, but it's like the point of the Beastie, like how people were freaking out so much about the Beastie, and Ralph is like, there's no such thing as a Beastie, no such thing as a Beastie, and like kind of beating that into the ground. But then Jack says, like, when you're in the woods, like, don't you feel like something's watching you? Like something's like with you,
like not to,
in the
just
woods.
that
like you're not
hunting, but
alone.
you're being hunted.
I'm
You're
really
not
glad
alone.
you brought up
Yes,
that point because
I
I feel
it was
like
so disturbing.
Yeah, and I feel like paranoia is a really big part in the book, and it especially is prevalent later in the book. But even now, whenever that kid mentions the Beastie, there was a little bit of paranoia among the other kids, and it even creeps up into, I think, chapter 3, right? Whenever they're building the shelters and all the kids are having, the little ones are having nightmares and stuff.
Yeah.
Because they're so scared of this Beastie.
And they said like they couldn't even talk about snakes, like after a
Yeah,
certain
and
point.
whenever that fire...
Yeah, they weren't allowed to talk about
Yeah,
snakes.
because like
Yeah.
the little kids would just freak out. And it said eventually like
The little ones.
they stopped crying for their moms, but they still cried like every night, like about
Dang.
the beasties and stuff
Well,
like
even
that.
whenever the
And I'm like,
forest,
there's no one there to be like, hey, it's
Yeah.
gonna be okay, except for Piggy, who like knelt down to the little kid who was like, I saw the Beastie, and he was like, what did you see, guy? Like, he was being so sweet to him. And it's like everybody was just like, whatever, you little kids. But nobody's there to comfort them. Nobody's there to give them like childhood like needs, and like
to rear them.
Those kids will turn out to be psychopaths.
Yes.
I'm not even joking.
my
Like when you don't have when I think about these little boys or like little children who don't have like moms or even just people who like love and nurture them, they end up crazy. They have like a really hard time identifying like or understanding what's going on in their life. So
I do feel like a big part of that is kind of like male culture and just like
and
what
apathy.
values are instilled in men and what are instilled. You know, you talked a little bit about it earlier. If this had been a group of girls that had like a little experience babysitting or something, then they would maybe be able to like get this situation under a little better control. And with guys, I think it's just like, well, I got to exert my like leadership. You know, I've got to take charge of this situation. And Piggy is the only one, because he's not physically fit. He can't take that stance. He's got to think about things rationally and try like hope to be a voice of reason for all of these kids, and everybody else is just like, I'm gonna go kill something. Next time I'm gonna kill it for sure.
yeah.
And whenever he makes that spear too, and he starts throwing it in the ground every second, he's like, I got the spear and I'm gonna put barbs on it. Like,
so
throws
it'll
it.
stick in the pigs.
That's like
crazy.
basically him saying like, my balls are bigger than your balls, like watch this, I'm gonna throw this spear. Like these little boys, like I can't deal with it.
Man, Jack
Because
really wants to assert his dominance
I'm gonna
after
tell you-
not becoming leader. He's like, I'm the leader, guys.
Man.
Stabs tree 3
I know.
times.
And I think it's just like the reason why I think that like it would just be so completely different. I don't think anybody would die if there were women on this island. Nobody would die. Like, it is like instinctual in you to like take care of other people. Sometimes when you're a girl, like if you're around little kids, like you know what to do. And one, like you've been holding babies since like you were 6 years old, or like you've been around other women. Unless you haven't.
I would not be the same.
Like,
I'd probably be Jack in this.
I would be such a boss
Hold
in
your
that
spear.
situation. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, and it's just so, like, women don't have to, like, power flex to other women often. It's like sometimes they do, but, like, it's in different ways. Oh, yeah, you got a little message on
Okay,
that.
Yeah,
so we have
you have a message shouting you out.
We have a message to Ren right now. He says,
I've been trying to read it.
So we're not going to generally address the chat in these these episodes, but for today we're
I saw that earlier and I was like,
I'm gonna read this one out real quick.
God.
So you're going by Ren now, nerd. Haha. What's up, douchebag?
Pathetic.
It's Tanner from high school. Remember me? Me and the guys used to give you a hard time in high school. Sorry, you were just an easy target. LOL. I can see not much has changed. Remember Sarah, the girl you had a crush on? Yeah, we're married now. I make over 200K.
Maverick, did you go to the bathroom
And
to
drive
write
a
this?
Mustang GT. I guess some things never change. Hi, loser. Nice catching up. LOL. Pathetic.
I love that last line.
Oh my God, is this real?
Pathetic.
Does he mean this?
First of all, I don't think I went to high school with a Tanner at all.
That message
There's
is
one kid-
actually hilarious.
There's one kid named Tanner I can think of that my brother lived with, but I don't know if he wasn't even in high school whenever I was.
Oh,
so.
yeah, loser? Well, now he's making 200K, so how do you feel
and
now?
And a
Oh my
Mustang
gosh.
GT.
Mustang
he's
GT.
And a
banking
Sarah. We had one Sarah that I can think of, but she
Dating
was
that
like
one
2
Sarah.
grades higher. Like, I would say, sure, everybody had a crush on Sarah, but
Yeah.
I would not say, like, that anybody would say, oh, Ren had a crush on a Sarah.
Dude,
I have no
that,
idea
that
what this is.
comment
This is completely
is
made
masterfully
up.
written.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I think maybe this is probably like our first troll.
Okay.
I think so.
Is this a bot?
I always went by Ren.
Yeah.
So you
like,
go
it's
by
my-
Ren now?
Like, it's my middle name. I
was so
I wouldn't
confused.
choose to go by my middle name, but my mom and dad always called me Ren. So
Yeah,
I can't think
Same.
of like
Me too.
I think it's a troll, but I don't know
It's
if
gotta be.
if
Okay,
it is or
but
not
that
because
is
it's
amazing.
his
you,
account.
You've got mad beef with somebody, and you know what, Tanner? If you're waiting, Ren's ready for you. He'll fight you anytime.
Dude,
go.
he's got his boxing
Let's
gloves
go.
on
No
right
Mustang GTs, just bodies out
Roll
on the
up.
street.
now. Yeah.
Roll
You know,
up.
I want to say that it's a troll, but I don't know though, because he created his account in August of 2016.
He
No,
came here
dude,
to find
they're just
you.
a genius.
So I don't know.
'cause this is
I added some
hilarious.
laughing armadillos in there.
Remember Sarah, the girl you had a crush on? Yeah, we're married now.
Okay,
I
hey,
don't
Dude,
know.
he wrote
Okay.
you a novel.
listen, I could do some serious sleuthing right now. Go, let's see
Let's-
if he uses this.
Okay.
Look up
this
his IP address and then look up his actual address and then we're gonna knock on the door and we're
Like-
gonna punch him in the face.
Joe from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I honestly cannot remember a single Tanner
no,
that
I
I
Have
went
you
to high
ever
school
I
seen
think
with.
that's
What
great. If-
Happens in Vegas? They knock on the door, then they punch that guy in the face, and they go, "You know what you did."
They
Oh,
punch him in the
God.
balls. That's what it is. I watched that. They were like, you know, and he's like, yeah.
I've seen that.
I do.
Yeah. I love
Genius.
that. That was great. I think if he's not a troll, I think the fact that you can't remember him and you don't know who he is
That's
is
the
great.
funniest part.
Maybe he just hates your face. Like he's like, I know. Maybe you look like someone he hates.
He says Tanner from high school. I'm like, did we go to high school together, or did I just know you in high school? Or this obviously, it seems like a copy and paste type of
But
thing.
I
Yeah, it
love
seems
the
like a copy
haha.
pasta.
What's up, douchebag? It's Tanner.
It seems like a copy pasta, and the only thing that he changed in it is Ren.
I could see you're
Probably.
you're sorry, you
Oh, this is a different person.
Do you
Oh wait,
remember
no.
me from
It's
biology freshman year?
Oh,
It's
this is
Laura.
amazing.
Are these bots?
holy crap.
How would these be bots?
I don't know. I think this is. I think.
Tanner, you gullible idiot. Anyway.
Okay, so he says, "Hey Ren, do you remember
It's
me
still
from
Tanner,
biology?
you fucking gullible
Freshman year,
idiot.
it's Laura. I just wanted to stop by since you missed the last reunion. I was looking for you. I always thought you were really smart and talented, but I could never work up the nerve to tell you. Anyway, I hope you're doing well. Haha. Just kidding. It's still Tanner, you fucking gullible idiot. LMFAO.
Anyway, the gym
awaits. See you, man. Good talk.
That's so
Someone's
funny.
trolling us. He
That's-
the
he logged
gym
onto a
awaits.
different account.
That's our, he just changes color.
Oh,
And his
hilarious.
username. That's our one F word for a PG-13 rating,
Man,
by
why'd
the way.
you use it? You don't even have the
Yeah,
content.
Yeah, no, I read it out loud and I was like, oh, whoop.
Yeah. Oh, we lost it. We both said it.
Yeah. Darn it.
No.
Anyway, hey, hold on. I
weird-
have to deal with this person. Sepulchre, listen. I need you to either stop trolling us or participate in the conversation. If you send another copy pasta, I'm gonna have to ban you from the chat. So I like this to be lighthearted, but I don't screw around with trolls. So because you don't help out with our whole situation and our goals. So I'm glad to have you here, man.
Stop not assisting us. With
Okay,
our
it's
goals.
copy pasta. Now ban me. Well, now I'm not gonna ban you because you asked me to, and you're a troll. I can't do what you asked me.
Yeah, Maverick, you can't listen
Maybe
to him.
he really enjoys it though, and he's like actually having fun.
Dude,
Yeah.
no, seriously. We if you enjoy the book, we would like you to come and join in. But if you don't have that capability, then we're gonna have
He's
to
just watching because Brooke and I are
sever
really
our
pretty.
relationship.
Yeah.
That's what it is. What it is.
Dude,
That's
we're
why
on the
you
casting
promised.
couch. That's what you tuned in for.
Right.
Can't say
He's
that
married
you're
to.
here.
You don't understand. He's married to Sarah, though.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
want to be
man.
with Tanner.
Yeah. So
Trash.
Oh my
where
God.
did you guys leave off
Trash.
with?
Trash.
On the book?
On the book, yeah.
Man, I don't know.
Let's see.
so listen.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. This one was interesting.
What is chapter 3 called?
It is called
Huts on the Beach.
Huts on the Beach.
Pizza Huts on the Beach.
No,
like
that
pizza.
would be a good thing.
So I guess this chapter was kind of weird and brief. It's just like they have
It
huts
was
on the beach
very
now.
fast.
This was
And the
like
end of it is really weird because it just like talks about Simon walking back into the jungle and what he's seeing.
it
and just
serves a
kinda-
purpose.
It does? Okay.
I
It's like,
think so.
it stays focused on him for a little while, like the attention is.
Oh my god, the description of what Simon is doing is a page and a half.
Did you drop your book in the bathtub?
This is not mine.
I was going to say,
It's a little wet.
the way those pages are warped.
Guys, I was bathing with it.
So that was a
He gave it to me.
that was a book that Mrs. Armadillo, which is like that's her like name on the stream, she got that book from her boyfriend who stole it from another person. So
I have a stolen book. Hello, police.
yeah, but it's been through quite a few hands, so it's not.
Been through a lot of baths,
Yeah,
a
it's
lot of
not-
different showers.
I guess so. I don't know. It doesn't even look that terribly wrinkled.
It's
It
just-
looks like
it's
someone
just the
sweat on it or
pages.
something.
Are very wrinkly. And
this
I don't
chapter,
like touching
this
it.
chapter just proves like what a like weirdo Jack is.
Mm.
Because they were like talking about the island, and they were talking about how the little kids, the Litlins, they said they're
Litlins.
screaming and they're scared, and Jack is saying like as if it wasn't a good island. And I'm like, what? You like living here? You like not like you like this? You're enjoying your stay here? And so he's like relishing this experience,
Dude,
being hungry and thirsty and not like having a good time. And I'm just like, that's trash. Like, I don't know why you feel like that. He's weird. He's just like I think this guy was already a bad guy, and it was easy for him to like lose his morals because he was already a jerk. So, but he really
I love that
gets
you
crazy
don't know
there.
any of their like home lives, really.
Right.
Aside
Yeah.
from Ralph.
Kind of.
You know his dad is in the Air
Yeah.
Force or the
Yeah.
Navy or
You
whatever.
don't know a lot of background about anyone else, though. You don't even know anything
Yeah.
about them, really.
Yeah, which is like rough because like I feel like the majority of the children who end up on the island are gonna be beholden to whatever they were left with by their parents in the last 10 years. So like whatever their parents raised them with in the last like 7 to 8 years is what they're going to use and utilize on the island.
Yeah.
So if you end up like a Jack, that's because your parents did that to you.
Yeah.
Sorry about it.
Yeah.
But like if you end up like a Ralph or a Piggy, it's because you were raised a different way.
Yeah, and that could be really that's controversial. So like
Right, because
behaviorism,
nature
so,
versus
like,
nurture.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like could they be are they originally like this? Are they actually like this?
Could just be a psychopath.
I think it's a combination.
I mean, I don't think
it's
that...
like, oh, he wasn't elected leader. Oh, he couldn't kill the pig and kind of embarrassed himself a little bit. That's one thing. But then how he deals with that and processes that emotionally.
I think he's trying to, like, definitely beef up, like, what all he's doing because he didn't get elected leader. And he's the prefect of a choir. I mean... That guy.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if there's like any importance in that, establishing that he's just a choir boy.
Yeah, he's like,
I
I'm
think
a prefect.
It's like that gave him authority in the first place, and so he's just clinging to that. A lot of things that like men do is basically like they want to like look like they're tough. They want to look like they're brave and strong and in charge. And so like if
like Tanner.
Yeah. You know, like Tanner. And so Jack not being able to kill the pig is that's hitting his ego. Like he's sitting there like thinking like, oh my gosh, like I'm not in charge. So that's why I think he got like darker. So like whenever he's like kills it, like people are looking at him, like the kids are in there like, oh, he brought us food. Like he might be important. He might be in charge. So
I think he's that definitely trying to take the leadership.
End of the chapters, the 4th chapter, he is like already established himself as the stronger, like alpha male in the story. Like there, and I don't know why they elected a chief. Like I don't know why it always has to just be one person to represent everybody's needs.
Right.
Like I felt like they needed to do that, but it's just.
I think they end up electing one person to represent everyone because no one wants to be responsible.
That's
right.
true.
And so
no one's able to be responsible.
No,
honestly.
well, in this situation, no one's able, nor is anyone wanting. No one desires to be responsible. So I think that's part of why they end up electing just one person. In addition, I don't think that they have the knowledge or the wisdom or experience to attempt to establish a system of governing that helps represent themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, what they're attempting to do is establish some kind of like leadership type system or some kind of republic that helps them out.
Some sort of order.
Right. Anything that they could possibly remember and like search within their little tiny minds that was like remnants of what the system they lived in back home was.
Exactly.
And they're doing the best that they possibly can to reenact all of this. And that's pretty much what they're doing here. And they just end up not doing such a great job of it. So I think that's mainly why. One of the interesting things that I see when they do enact some mob rule, or a better term might be direct democracy, is when they vote in Ralph in chapter 2 to be the leader. And an interesting thing that Ralph does in chapter 2 is whenever he chooses to try and pacify and give something to Jack, because he notices very clearly that Jack is super upset about the fact that he isn't the leader, right? And I forget who had this quote, but the quote was that the first part of being a good leader is not wanting to be one in the first place, right? So I think that Ralph ends up being the best option available, and that Ralph's decision to try and throw a bone to Jack to pacify him was a good decision, but I don't know how well it was, though. I think he's gonna end up undermining himself throughout later in the story because he not only threw a bone to him, but he gave him an entire hunting team. Yeah. Right? A whole like little mini platoon of choir boys to serve him. Yeah. I think that won't bode well for Ralph in the future.
No, I don't think so either. Yeah. It's weird because Ralph and Jack have this dynamic because they like climb the mountain together and they're like, we're brothers. Like, you know, they kind of went through it. And so whenever they're going back and forth and it's like, you know, all you do is talk about the pig, you know, you didn't kill the pig, and they're having that kind of awkward exchange. And he's like, I've been building these huts all day, and what have you done? You haven't even killed anything, and you're so worried about killing things. And it's just getting nasty between them. And it said like you know, on one page it says, you know, they looked at each other baffled in love and hate. Like, they hated each other for, like, this argument that they're having, but at the same time, like, they're in the same boat. And, like, and it was so weird to describe the dynamic as love, but that's what the author put in there. Like, you know, that they love each other, and that's weird.
He says love and hate.
Yeah, love and hate all at once. Yeah. And it just was like everybody was playing. They like looked around and they're upset with each other. They're looking around and everybody's like swimming in the bath and like playing and stuff. And they were just like, this is our situation. Like, this is what we have to deal with. It sucked. This book is just so upsetting because it's like there's not just one moment where they're like, oh, finally, like, we have some peace. Like, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah.
Bad things, I think, like, more bad things are to come.
So have we worked our way through chapter 3?
Yeah,
I think we
mainly,
have. Chapter 3 is the one where he was hunting the pig, but he didn't kill it, and then Ralph was making the shelter. Mm-hmm. And then there's the page and a half of Simon looking around the forest.
Yeah, it's
and
just like
Simon helping the little kids. So he was like pulling the fruit
from
the higher parts, and he was feeding the little kids.
All the 6 and under Lillans.
Yeah, and that was really important.
Lillans.
Ooh,
Litlins.
That's my rap name.
I highlighted something in here that I remembered, and it talked about the jungle closing in, and it said like the air was dark here too. Like everything was dark. Like the further that they went in, it was darker and darker. Like, and that the light was like going out. So like at the very end, it was just like basically talking about like the candle buds blossoming and like how the darkness just like slowly like descended on the island. And I can't imagine the candle buds. I don't know what they look like.
I have no idea.
I can't
I'm
imagine
assuming
them.
it's just like the end of a candle, like the flame itself.
Oh,
like
I didn't think of it like that. I just thought they were like
buds look like.
they're like green sticks of candles.
I honestly I couldn't decide in my mind
but
either.
They said
if it
that
was
like the scent
stick.
of those flowers like enveloped the entire island, like when they went to sleep, and that's what they're sleeping in. Like unless there's like a moon out, they get moonlight and like nothing else, like completely blackness. As far as I know, they're not making campfires. They're not sitting around a fire talking and stuff, and it's just darkness and this smell around them. Can you like just going to sleep?
Yeah,
and it's kind of like it's eerie.
That sounds almost pleasant, though.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I
probably
guess.
Not in their circumstances.
Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, if you could find a comfortable position and like some kind of like earthy bedding that would accept you.
Rock.
I would not have a good time. I've got a bad back.
But so is that the end of chapter 3?
And that's the end. Basically just saying like the scent spilled out into the air and took possession of the island. And that's like every once in a while he'll say like the most like artsy thing ever, and I'm like, ooh, like that's a nice line. I like that.
That is a good line.
It is.
And then we move on to chapter 4, painted faces and long hair, and this is kind of the chapter where it suggests that some time has passed.
I thought time had passed between the second and third chapter,
it was the second and third.
Yeah,
I think.
Okay.
Yeah, where he's like
let me check,
traipsing through the forest.
Yeah, I think it was the second one, and this is where Piggy's talking about the mirage and like explaining
the mirage. Things to Let's not act like it's real.
Right from the get-go, it says like
the fat kid sorcery.
Yeah,
basically,
man.
like people around the island. Right from the get-go, it says like hope was not necessary and therefore forgotten. So, like, they're not worried about getting rescued at this point because they have been there for a minute.
Yeah.
So, they're not, like, stressing about it because little kids are either playing, doing whatever job, and they can't sit there and just hope all day that they're going to get rescued.
Yeah. So, it's like, it deals a lot in the first half of the chapter with the 6 and under group.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And,
that was weird.
Henry and, who's the other one? There's Percival,
Henry,
Johnny. And it's Johnny and Henry who are throwing rocks. Henry's throwing rocks at Johnny, or
They're both like playing.
It's
playing
Roger.
With
Roger's an older
Roger,
kid,
like,
and he's hiding behind a palm tree.
Yeah.
And he's
And
throwing
Henry-
rocks, and he doesn't want to be seen.
But
throwing
he's
rocks
with
at Henry.
Maurice, and Maurice is like, I'm out. I don't want to kick sand in some kid's face.
Yeah, Percival's crying, and then later they go back and they do something
Man, the
else that
other
makes
kid
him
is
cry.
kicking sand in his face again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's
it said Maurice. Yeah, Maurice was kicking sand. He said in his other life he would have received chastisement for filling a younger eye with sand, and he said there was no parent to fall at heavy hand, but still Maurice felt the unease of wrongdoing.
Yeah, and so
he,
like,
he
left.
still felt like it was wrong.
But then, what's that other kid's name? Not Percival or Henry. What's it?
Roger.
Johnny. Johnny, like, starts kicking sand in Percival's face again.
No, he had to get
It's
up
kind
and
of
leave.
like this. It shows this growing savagery amongst the kids.
Yeah.
Like,
They're
that
just
they're
being
all
mean.
kind of letting loose a little bit with the rules of home. Like, oh, back home I
Dude,
couldn't do this.
There was
but
one about
nobody's
Henry.
stopping me
Henry,
here.
though.
Henry with the dead animal. Have you seen that? It was like something about poking this dead, like, scavenged corpse or something on the beach, and he was poking it, and animals were crawling out of it. And it said, like, he became absorbed, like, with mere happiness, and he felt himself exercising control over living things.
Mm.
Like, just how, like, heavy that is, like, feeling like God.
Exercising
Control over living
Yeah.
things. Like, and he's that little boy, he's 6. Like, feeling like God, like, sitting down watching.
Crabs or something.
That was
in the
one of the
sand?
things that really, like, piqued my attention about William Golding's attention to psychological detail, is that their human experience was being documented in this literature.
Yeah.
And it was very, very interesting to me, because he was talking about the way that the children feel, and that there was a moment in one of the children's minds in which, after he had kicked over and destroyed the sandcastle, right, that he had thought up already in his imagination an excuse as to why he had done this,
Yeah.
and what he would tell an adult, why he had done this, and how he would get out of it with a lie.
Yeah.
And that thing had passed through his head. And the similar thing with the kids who were exercising their undue power upon, like, animals that had no recourse of defense, is that they were just acting as gods upon them, and that was their first experience as, like, their own controllers, that they were their own gods now, and that they could do anything that they wanted. And I was like, holy shit. This is the downfall now. This is the spiral downward that these children are now going to take.
It's a lot of gravity. It's so, like...
But it's introduced in such, like, little ways where it just doesn't seem quite as heavy as it is.
Well, like,
it
kicking
said Roger,
over sandcastles
whenever
and
Roger
stuff.
was throwing the rocks, it said Roger's arm was conditioned by a civilization that knew nothing of him and was in ruins. So, like, or at least he thought was in ruins.
Yeah.
So, like,
I think that line was part of the reason I thought this was a new world war, too.
Oh,
that it was
yeah,
like
yeah,
a
yeah.
post-apocalyptic scenario now.
Yeah,
where
I feel
all
that.
of home was destroyed.
And then we move on, and right at that, like, kind of after that scene with, like, the dynamic of the older boys and the little boys on the beach, we see Jack changing himself, becoming something new. He's putting clay on his face, and he's you know what was really interesting that I noticed it? He was masking his humanity. He said, they can smell me, they can see me, I think that they can see me. And so, like, when you put mud on you, and he's disguising himself, and he's changing himself from a boy to, like, a killer, more animalistic.
It reminds me of the situation probably like 15 years ago now. There was this guy who was, like, obsessed with the musician Bjork, and he attempted to mail her a bomb, all this stuff, and, like, he put the wrong postage on it, which is the only reason it didn't go through. It wasn't a bomb, it was something that would, like, throw acid in her face when she opened
anthrax?
it. It was horrible.
Oh.
But he ended up killing himself And they have like all these videos of his sort of like diary, his confessions, talking about his obsession with her and how she started dating this other guy. Anyway, all this stuff. But before he shoots himself in the head, he paints his whole face green, and he keeps looking in a mirror before he does it. Almost because he's like psychologically trying to convince himself that he is not killing himself. He's killing somebody else. And it's kind of a similar thing. Like this, as soon as that paint comes on, some sort of mask or something, he's allowed to be like a different person entirely.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think it allows you to like detach from yourself.
For sure.
Yeah. You put on something, if they put on a mask or a wig or makeup or whatever, like even me putting on my makeup in the morning makes me feel elevated. It makes me feel a little bit like a different person because you're painting your face.
Sure.
So it's giving yourself confidence. So like, especially if you hide your face, that's why people who commit crimes like cover their face, because your face is part of your identity. And so when he looked in that pool, like he was able to lose his like identity. He was able to be like, I can murder something. I can kill something.
Yeah. He's not thinking of it in terms of himself killing something. And it's like this alternate
and that
identity.
That quote over and over again. We need meat. We need meat. We need meat. Like over and over again. And that's his like mantra. I mean, along with like kill the pig and stuff. And so it just gets darker and darker and darker. And we like question like, well, how much more? Like, how much worse can it get?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the interesting points of the story that I observed was, because I study a lot of, right now my two main interests are psychoanalysis and Stanislavskian acting technique. So Stanislavski mentions a lot in his literature on how to prepare as an actor. Some of the attempts that they made in making their physical appearance look as similar as they possibly could to the character they were attempting to portray, right? And then you pair that up with which was very effective, right? Which was it very much helped the actor enter into the character's life and put their feet into their shoes. And then you pair that up with a Jungian perspective from the psychoanalysis point of view, which is that every person has a persona that they put on every day, and that this persona oftentimes takes the guise of their occupation. So say for Ryleigh it might be a teacher, for Ren it might be a barista, and for me it might be a lighting technician. Whatever we're working as at that time is our persona, and we put that on whenever we go to work.
Yeah.
And that's what we wear, and that's what we show to people, and that's part of how we behave in that environment. And so we see Jack enter into this new environment, this new occupation, and he dons this new persona, and he embraces it fully, as this person who's going to survive. He has visions and this different imagery built up in his imagination of what a soldier is and what a survivor is. And he puts paint on his face, and he transforms into this survivor, and he acts accordingly.
I mean, yeah, in a natural selection perspective, like, Jack's gonna make it.
Yeah.
He's savage.
Right.
He doesn't care.
From
he does not care.
A Darwin point of view, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's just, he's just the worst. It's really hard to be likable to someone who is, like, so far removed. Like, you can't relate with him. You can't be like, I've never felt to the point, like, where I've never felt animalistic. I've never been in that situation. Oh, I take that back. One time.
Whoa.
One time I wrestled a greased watermelon in a creek, and and I thought I was gonna drown, and like I was like wrestling this girl, and that's the only time that I was like if I don't do this
Wait,
in
you
my
were
head,
wrestling a girl or a watermelon?
a girl over a greased watermelon.
What?
And it was like, I'm serious. This was
this
for
in
a
between
church
like
camp.
running moonshine or
This
like
was a church camp.
It was a church camp, and
what
yeah,
was the
and we
lesson there?
Excuse
I
me?
don't know, but like I remember like just feeling like just this like massive like power struggle between her and I, and it was just like so like raw, like just that feeling like I have to beat her, like I have to win, I have to get this watermelon, like my face like being like overlapped with water. It was like being pushed down in water, and it was just like the scariest experience of my life. But that was like, but
Okay.
other than that, like, I mean, I didn't lose myself. I wouldn't have killed her. Like
You were like Jacob wrestling the angel in the Bible, except it was over a
wrestled
watermelon.
the-
Yeah,
Oh,
and your hip didn't
That
end
was
up
the
getting
lesson, though.
broken.
It was at church camp. That was the lesson.
I don't know.
My.
It's just like it's
That's
just
so
we
funny.
will never have to experience this. Guys, do you remember that show where they basically like put kids in this pioneer town and like let them live by themselves? And like they had all their resources.
Yes.
What?
And
I do remember that.
this.
and this one girl was like crying because they were killing a chicken so they could eat, and they were like, "Don't
Yeah.
kill the chicken."
It was like an offshoot of Survivor.
Oh.
And it was like through the same producers, I think.
It was awesome.
Yeah,
kids'
it was like
town.
an old west town, wasn't it?
Yeah, they were all in this
Yeah.
old west town, and they were like left to their own devices,
Yeah.
and they had to come up with some hard decisions. Like, for
I'm just
real.
thinking of Bruno when Sacha Baron Cohen is in disguise and he's like coming up with the worst case scenarios for little kids to be in. Like they'll have to operate heavy machinery and their lives could be endangered just to see like how far these stage parents will go to make their kids famous and what they'll allow their kids to do. And they all like ultimately agree to whatever scenario he's developing. And it's just like
England did
shows how horrible
two
they are.
documentaries where they left ages like 8 to 14 in a house alone. Like one they did boys, all the boys alone in a house and all the girls alone in a house, and of course they like trashed the house. But like basically all these shows that like involve kids alone, they have massive lawsuits on them because like people are like, that's inhumane, like you can't do that. But a lot of crazy stuff happened. Like the girls, like, you know, they had some semblance of like okayness. They tried to make dinner, but like the boys, like the first thing they did, they were like, all right, let's rip open all the cereal and pour it on the floor and stomp on it.
Oh my
And it was
God.
just like
That'd be
chaos.
I like that the boys are just like clearly the problem.
And it was like, it was one of those
situations.
situations. I was watching it and I was like, man, this reminds me of Lord of the Flies. Like the whole time I was watching it, because the boys were just like, they went outside and there was like a hedgehog outside and they're like, let's kill it. Like,
Oh my
that was the first
gosh.
thing they
What?
thought. They were like, let's kill it. And the producers, they were like filming it and they were like, hey, don't kill the hedgehog. They had to step in.
Oh dang.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Man.
Yeah. It was just like super dark. For sure. But, well, okay. It wasn't dark because it was like really, it's just awful to watch like little kids misbehave. Like, for me.
Yeah, sure.
Because like, okay, when I'm at my job and I watch my kids do bad things, I'm like, you know better. Like, I've seen you. You know better. And like, I'm going to tell you, every time that a little kid does something bad, they look around to see if someone's watching them. So like, I wonder how often.
That makes total sense. It's
how
like the
often
kid
these
when he's
people,
in the
like,
book
look
when he's
around.
throwing the stones and it's talking
Yeah.
about his.
Yeah, like him just
There's
looking
no
around.
one around.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so have we made our way through the majority of the book so far?
Yeah. Basically, these people are plunging into madness. They kill. Ew. The creeper part where it said he was like, his blood was sliding all over him.
Yeah, I really thought that part was particularly gross.
It was pretty nasty.
Yeah.
But it's like, can you imagine the desperation in him? Like, he's like getting like cut up
oh, he
to
doesn't
the
even
point
care.
of like bleeding, and he's like, this was my favorite part. One of my favorite parts that he realized he didn't have Piggy's glasses while he was climbing up the mountain, and he said he was balanced on the high peak of need agonized by indecision, and he cried out, and he was like, oh God. He didn't know what to do. Should he go back and get the glasses, or should he go ahead and go up to the mountain? He didn't know what to do, and just like that, like huge fear, which is why I think that he had like so much hate fire whenever Jack came back, and he was like, I'm gonna fight you right now. Like,
it's ready to throw down.
Yeah, and honestly, I think that, like, if those two had a physical altercation, whoever, like, came out on top, like, would, like, be, like, he would never lose his position.
No.
Like, as the leader of these boys.
Yeah, I think that we see, like, both of them compete, but I don't know. See, it's so difficult to try and categorize both of them, like to consider which one would be better in this situation, because like Jack is clearly the fittest in the environment.
Yeah. Okay, if we look at it from that perspective, if I'm making bets on money, who's gonna survive the longest?
Right.
If you're making
Jack.
bets on them.
Oh my God.
If I was a betting man, I
no,
place my bets on Jack.
like Jack's gonna be on my fantasy football team. Like,
Yeah.
He's already drafted on mine.
Yeah,
Right.
so it's just.
But like for Ralph though, like if Ralph were able to lead everybody into, I feel like Ralph could lead everyone on the island into a situation that was best in the long term.
Yeah, like a self-governing island.
Yeah, that when or if they were saved and rescued from the island, that they wouldn't have to go through such a rigorous process of reintegration,
Yeah, so it's just sad, because I think that so often you're just searching, you're just hoping that they're going to be nice to each other, or they're going to be compassionate, and it's I think as we continue, it's going to be continually lacking of, like,
you kind of get the sense that, that's not the kind of book this is.
I know.
That's not the direction this book is going to go in.
It's definitely not a positive book.
No. It's going to be a tragedy, and I think that's part of the theme.
Yeah.
I think. So just to like try and wrap things up, what do you guys feel like we should do for the next reading? How far do you think we should read in the book?
How many chapters are there?
I mean, there's 12 chapters, and I figured, like, if we could read 4 chapters, like, then we could have 3 of these.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
yeah,
then
that wouldn't be bad.
But then I'm scared that, like, we're gonna read 4 more chapters, and there's, like, we're about to get to, like, a really important point, and we're gonna be like, I want to read on, freaking out, you know.
I skimmed.
If that happens, I think we might message each other.
So here's a suggestion.
Go on.
If we
through it?
Well, I've already read it, but I was looking at what happens when, because I didn't remember when things happen.
Oh, okay.
But the
That's
the next 4 chapters, the biggest things in the book don't happen until the last 4 chapters.
Gotcha.
So I feel like we could reach a stopping point
after 4 next chapters.
Yeah, if we read the next 4 chapters, because the last 4 are crazy.
Yeah, I know
Okay.
stuff that happens, and it's like, and even before, like, I mean, everybody knows, if you watch this movie, like, whatever, you know what's gonna happen, and it's just that pit in your stomach. Like, I'm not excited.
It's like being at the top
always
of a
know,
roller
like,
coaster, and you're about to go
the worst
down.
has not happened yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, since Brooke, thank you for doing that research for us.
Of course.
We will do 2 more sessions here to cover 8 chapters, 4 at a time. And then we will do a 3rd session, and we will compare the book to the film.
Ooh.
Ooh.
Yo, are we just gonna trash
All
this
right.
film right now?
Oh my
We're
God.
gonna be like,
Can
God,
we watch the movie on camera?
So it might that 3rd session might end up being short. It might end up being long, but whatever it is.
4 sessions overall. This one plus
3. It'll be 4 overall, but it'll be
Gotcha.
yeah, it'll
3
be
more.
3
after
after
that.
Yeah,
3 more,
after this.
and then the movie one.
So chapters
Yes.
4
Yeah.
through 8, 9 through 12, then the movie.
Yeah.
I love to
Yes.
have people read what I write. I just read what you wrote. How do you feel?
How do you feel?
They love it.
How does it feel?
So that's our plan, and we'll continue on. We'll continue on with the book. So, like, how does everyone feel about the book so far?
Man,
you know what?
hate it.
I didn't think that
good.
there was going to be much to talk about because I was like, this book's trash.
Yeah.
I really hate how much like description is going into this story that I just cannot comprehend.
I think that
Don't worry,
that maybe
it stays throughout
like,
the entire book.
Maybe if we were English and we were familiar with islands, like we would understand.
I don't think so. I don't think us being
I think
British
it's just
would
not
help
his
this
strong point.
Or like-
but it's also not the point of the book either.
Yeah.
So you can easily not comprehend that.
There
and
are
still
times when you
understand the
read
book.
older books and you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'm like, what does that mean? So I go and like look it up.
Oh yeah,
like,
I've
while
always got
reading
my
it.
phone out when I'm reading, and if there's a word I come across that I don't know, I will Google it so
Yeah.
quick.
He loves
Yeah.
the word furtive. He uses
Really?
that word a lot. Furtive.
I had to
We'll
look up
Which
count
I mean, like in my
creepers
head.
at the very beginning. I was like, I think I know what this is, but let me
No,
look
it's
this
the
up.
ones from my
Count,
I think.
any words that you find in the book that you feel like are popping up a lot.
Yeah.
Count them.
We should be like teachers and we make a vocabulary list. We put it out for the stream so everybody can
Can
like.
we just
Count
drink
all the-
every
No,
time
for the
we mention
stream.
creeper?
So for anyone wondering, I'm gonna do the footwork on this. Anyone watching this stream and you've made it all the way to the end, congratulations. There will be a directory
Good job.
in the description below if this is the YouTube. And there will be different links and time codes that you can follow for different subjects. So if you happen to be a student or something
That's
like that
really-
wanting
that's
to
super cool.
sift through this story, I will have topics detailed in the description below. So you
Good
can
luck
go there.
sifting through
and
this
you can find them.
conversation,
Good luck.
Maverick.
I have to watch this whole thing over again so I can do all this. But it's all for you. So
Congrats, Maverick.
Do we know when we're meeting again?
so I would prefer to do it next week, but I don't know if everyone is available for
yeah.
next week.
Yeah,
Is
for
everyone
sure.
ready for next week? If everyone is ready for next week, we can do that
Ren's
next
like,
week.
"Let
I
me
am
check my
always
schedule."
available.
I
I'm
know
always
I'm scheduled
available.
on Saturday of next week.
I have a Monday through Friday.
Who drinks
Jump.
coffee at night?
I do.
I
Exactly.
I don't.
You
Because
don't?
I like to go to sleep.
Oh, yeah.
I
drink
drink
it
coffee.
every-
I don't drink coffee past 3 in the afternoon.
Drink Natty Light Seltzer.
Okay, I'm off. I'm off
Delicious.
Saturday. I work Saturday, but it's in the morning, so
Okay, good. So you can
Hallelujah.
come next
Yeah.
Saturday?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we will meet next Saturday,
chapters 5 through 8.
chapters 5 through 8, and we will be going live at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time.
Gotcha.
Where
So-
we have to read 5 through 9.
5 through 9.
Oh, my
5
bad,
through
my bad.
9. I
Five
was
through
like,
nine?
wait, hold on.
Wait,
Yeah.
5, 6, 7, and 8. 4 more chapters.
5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8,
No,
8 to 9. We need 4 more chapters
No.
because I
We're
thought
reading chapter 5, chapter 6, chapter
Chapter
7,
seven,
and
chapter
chapter
8.
8. That's 4 more right there.
Man,
you're
confusing
right.
me.
I'm tripping. You're right.
Okay.
And
yes.
you call yourself a
5
teacher.
But I think earlier I said 4 through 8. So
Gosh damn,
do.
5 to 8, all right?
all right.
5 to 8. So we'll do those next 5 to 8 chapters, and I'll be sure to post different updates on those, and we'll also have a countdown the day of, so you won't miss out on that, and we'll know when it is. Thank you so much. I hate Daniel 99 for coming in
9-9.
with
I
the
hate
comments
Daniel
and everything
too.
like that.
Is that
Uh,
the
Dude,
troll?
I despise
Yeah.
Dan.
Oh my god. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah,
or
thanks.
Tanner. Or
Thanks, man.
whoever.
We'll be uploading this to uploading clips to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and we'll be uploading the entirety of it, including the clips, onto YouTube and ThinkSpot if you happen to be in the beta. So look forward to that, and we will be on next week. So thank you guys for coming in. We're done for talking now. Alexander, if you could shut us
Bye.
off, count us
Please.
down. We'll wave bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.